stereotyping is extremely damaging. Everything we've learned over the last hundreds of years of, decades of struggle for women's empowerment gets lost in this stereotyping. And this stereotyping continues throughout the document. When it is talking about educating the girl child. When you're talking about educating the girl child, you're talking about providing schools with basic civic amenities like toilets. So the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan is there all over. It's not limited to, just that one little basic civic amenities. Healthcare is missing from the entire document. From the entire document, what you have missing is provision of other civic amenities like nutrition, which is a fundamental right for every child under the Right to Education Act. What is missing is clean drinking water. What is missing is inclusiveness. But we'll come to that later. When I'm talking about how the girl child gets deprived, I'm asking you to, and since BASE works in some of the remotest areas of Bengal, you'll be able to identify with this much more easily. It's been happening in a lot of places where it's been implemented. If a school does not have, say, 20 children, the school is closed or merged with another school which has another 5 children. Now, the new school would be 20 kilometers away. So you have this very ambitious project of merging schools for an entire district. How do children go from their village, their homes, to the school which is maybe 20, 25 kilometers away? What happens is the provision is for you getting a bicycle or a means of transport. How many parents can afford to allow their 3-year-olds or 5-year-olds to cycle down to school, which is 20, 25 kilometers away? Just want you to think about it. It's going to be a little difficult to imagine, envisage this, but this is a reality in happening. In Chhattisgarh, in places in Odisha, in near Bhubaneswar, schools are getting closed down. In Karnataka, in Andhra Pradesh, schools are getting closed down in tribal areas. They're getting merged into one. So if 5 villages get merged into one school, the girl child automatically gets dropped out. And when the girl child gets dropped out, the male child also gets dropped out, because when you have a distance to cover, there is going to be nobody who will be able to take you there, bring you back. The security of little boys is as important as the security of young girls or little girls. And there is just no provision for that. In a lot of places, the government has very grandly announced that they've given so many bicycles. But there is no backup. If the bicycle breaks down, who pays for the repairs? What happens till the cycle is repaired? I'm going into a few nitty-gritties just to give you a rough idea about how difficult the entire process of imparting or implementing the new education policy is. And the more remote areas you go to, the worse it gets. And the reason I'm bringing up these nitty-gritties is because later when I talk about caste, this is what you need to focus on. If you're looking at school education, if you're looking at the kind of education that is to be provided, apart from the content, which is now going to be not decided by the government anymore, understand a few things about the new education policy. It's divided everything into research, teaching, and then some. So if you're in higher education and you go into a research university, you can't teach. If you're in a teaching university, you can't research. The overlapping is gone. There is going to be a merging of all the STEM education and all STEM research into one. That's one part of the story. The important aspect about all these changes is the centralization of education. You've taken it out of the state subject or a concurrent list and you've centralized it. All the funding is now to be controlled not by anybody. The bodies are just there to facilitate. But the control of all finances, all funding, lies in the hands of the Prime Minister. So if you're looking at a long-term retention of power by the BJP, successive BJP prime ministers are going to be funding what they like, whether it is in research, whether it is in teaching. That is where you need to be very careful about how much can you allow. I don't know how many of you are going to be taking up the cause of, actually studying the new education policy and maybe protesting against it. But these are small nitty-gritties that you need to understand when you're trying to formulate your understanding. It's not just going to be about how the schools are structured. It's about how the document understands society. And how is it telling you to understand society? How is it telling you to understand economy? How is it telling you to understand polity? It's telling you that English is a foreign language. It's telling you that you do not need the constitution to understand law. Socio-cultural roots of law are more important. So the gender bias, anytime anyone understands or tries to study gender in any document, in any policy document, especially in education, you understand it at two levels. One is, how is gender sensitization being brought about? And the other is, how will it impact the gender? So if you stereotype the gender and said that mothers are going to be the most important people in a child's life, you've already taken the woman out of circulation from public life, made her into a full-time mother, so she never gets back into the system anymore. And at another level, if you're looking at what kind of education it is giving to women, it's again stereotyping them. It's saying that they will have quotas and it will have preferences and priorities given to women in stereotypical jobs like nursing, like teaching. And what is even more unfair is that once it proceeds to defining these, categorizing these jobs, which are supposed to be women-centric jobs, it has made them economically insecure. Because none of these jobs, the document itself is spelling it out, mind you, that none of these jobs are going to give you economic security. You will be employed as a teacher maybe for 5 years, maybe for 7 years. And then you go through a revision and you constantly, and the revision is not going to be for promotion. It's going to re-enroll you for the same job. So you constantly, for the life of you, stay stuck in one pay scale. And you are at the mercy of the private philanthropist or the private public partnership, any of the PPPs that you want to say. All these institutions, all these organizations will be able to decide your destiny. Whether they want to hire you back after 5 years or 7 years, or they don't want to, or they want somebody younger to come in at half the price. There is to be no regulation. So on the one hand, you've stereotyped women in particular jobs. On the other hand, you've made those jobs to be economically so unsuitable that it makes an entire gender vulnerable. If your teachers, your informal teachers, your formal teachers, you are B.Ed with 4 years, you're a PhD in education, your entire career will not last more than 10 to 12 years. So even if you spend the better half of your higher education in acquiring a PhD for maybe 5 years, 7 years, you won't be able to work for more than 10 to 15 years after that. It's an absolute blank when it comes to the future of what people who will learn from this education system is going to be. This brings you to a very interesting point in the new education policy, which is the focus on skill education. And this is where caste comes in. And caste comes in big time. The word caste is not mentioned throughout the document. Keep that in mind. Caste is something which is so dirty a word that it is not mentioned at all. There are underrepresented categories or underrepresented groups. Reservation is not talked about. So what do you have? When you have this understanding of caste as Indians, you realize that when the document is talking about every community, every artisanal class educating its own children, you realize that the caste is being sort of solidified. A sculptor school will have only sculptors' children. And we live in a country where we have entire villages, sections of villages. You have entire areas which are exclusive. They are ghettos. The Brahmins have their agraharas, their temples. The Valmikis have their own place. Every caste will have their own colonies in cities. Every caste will have their own ghettos in villages, in small towns. In maybe cosmopolitan cities, there is a little bit of social intermixing. But the lower you go, the more interior you go, the worse this happens. And when this is happening, you realize that entire colonies of Nais will have one school, and in that one school, you are asking the elder to teach the younger. So, what is the elder going to teach the younger? How to be a better barber. What are the trades? What are the kind of barber techniques to be used? Or maybe leather making, maybe sculpting. That is reinforced and recognized. And it's being made into something rock solid. If you're trying to understand how underrepresented communities are going to be mainstreamed, understand this, that the intention is never to mainstream them. So if by hook or by crook, you're able to, if you're from a marginalized community and you're able to afford education in a public, philanthropic, partnership institution or a public-private partnership institution, you are literally at the mercy of the institution and you have no idea where it goes from there. You're literally at mercy. And social engineering is going to be complete because in the agraharas, in the kind of systems that you are envisaging, this watertight compartmentalization of society is complete. So when the document was first criticized for being a Manuvadi document, people were not wrong, because what is happening is that over the years, the Brahmins have managed to get their social capital. They've managed to build it over the years, over centuries, over decades. They're the only community which has managed to acquire education. The Brahmins, the Rajputs, to other people, maybe to a certain extent the Vaishyas, but beyond that, and this is a good 65 to 75% of the country we're talking about, they've not been able to get that kind of social capital. And their exclusion is going to be complete. Which brings me back to social engineering. If exclusion is one form of social engineering, and telling you that you belong to a certain part of society, in a certain place in society, in a certain order in the social order, it gets worse for the tribals, even for the castes actually, because a lot of castes were imbibed into Hinduism. When Hinduism was being defined by the British, it was anything which was non-Abrahamic religions. And if you look at the history of India, particularly if you look at early medieval India, you'll see a lot of Vaishnavites, what we are calling Sanatan Dharmis today. They have been rewriting history. So what they are doing is, over a period of time, they've made Mahavir into a Vaishnavite god. They're trying to say Buddhists are essentially Hindus. Buddha was part of the pantheon. And this is important because this is how the appropriation of all the goddess cults has been taking place. The goddess cults, whether it's Kali, whether it is any other goddess that you have across the country, we are a country of, I think, 84 lakh gods and goddesses. All of them predate the Aryan history of Vaishnavism. And if they're predating, to make them part of the Vaishnavite history, to say that a certain goddess is actually the result of the pantheon. She was created by Shiva, or she was created by Vishnu, or a god was created by Shiva or Vishnu, or he was a disciple who was blessed, somebody like Hanuman. The creation of a new religion starts. The appropriation is being done through Ekal schools in tribal areas. The Sanghis have a term for the Christian missionaries who convert tribals to Christianity, or who convert anybody to Christianity, that these guys are rice bag converts. But the actual rice bag conversion that is taking place is at the tribal level by the Ekal movement, where you're trying to say one country, one religion, one Sanatan Dharma. So you are imbibing everyone and you're absorbing everyone, you're appropriating everyone into the pantheon or the trinity, Shiva, Vishnu, Brahma. You're trying to say that whatever tribal gods, whatever tribal goddesses, whatever the history, it's actually part of the history of either Vishnu or Shiva or Brahma. They were created. They may have been much, much older. This entire Mool Nivasi movement, to a certain extent, recognizes this. And they also recognize the fact that converting to Buddhism is a way of challenging Hinduism, but absorption into Hinduism is so strong that it is going to be a very long, long fight by people who are into critical thinking or people who are into learning the absolute truth. But as I said, this project aims between 2020 and 2040 to have indoctrinated an entire generation into understanding the kind of Hinduism that the Sanghis are preaching to get their followers. That is important. Another little aspect that I want you to look at is when you're talking in terms of tribal schools, and you're talking in terms of their absorption, or if you're talking in terms of caste, or you're talking in terms of their exclusion, you're talking in terms of not just recreating their mythologies, recreating their entire histories. You're talking in terms of trying to subsume them, their culture, and their language. Their linguistic history is what is being told as being secondary. The emphasis on classical languages is just this. Trying to tell the tribals or people who come from a different caste with a different set of gods, that your histories are essentially to be read in classical literature. So the entire erasing of history of languages takes place. Understand this, that if you have erased an entire understanding of local history, local politics, local social structure, it is equally easy to erase the idea of anything Western coming in. So you're not just saying English is a foreign language. As Amit Shah very recently said, human rights are not an Indian concept. And he's right. It's not an Indian concept. Western medicine is not an Indian concept. Your understanding of what law should be practiced is going to be suddenly an alien concept, because the Constitution of India is borrowed from the American Constitution, the French Constitution. It's borrowed from a whole range of British constitutions. So it's a foreign concept. So when they're trying to revise law schools, they're saying, and that gets even more dangerous for women and caste people. Because when you're saying that your legal education needs to be rooted in socio-cultural traditions of the country, we are no longer talking in terms of manusmriti. We're talking in terms of small areas with small panchayats, with khap panchayats, coming up with their own traditions of misogyny, of their own traditions of patriarchy, of their own caste practices, of their own cultural practices. So don't be too surprised if in another 10 years you see an entire set of lawyers being trained to say honor killing is okay. Lynching is perfectly justified because the person offends. We already have the Mohsen Sheikh case, where the court itself said he belonged to another religion, which was offensive to the people who lynched him. And that's enough justification for lynching. All these mindsets are going to come up now through the process of education, where you will have a withdrawal of funding, you'll have a withdrawal of control over the kind of education being imparted. You should not be very, very worried about the public-private partnership, because the private sector is just going to make it more competitive. It might just take the syllabus from any of the Western universities and implement it. But it's the philanthropic that you need to worry about. If you look at the news reports in the last few months, you'll come across news reports where the children asked for egg, and the children in coastal areas asked for fish in their meals. It's a nutritional component which is defined by the state laws. But it was not implemented because the food provider was ISKCON, or the food provider was another philanthropic organization or entity. I'll just come to the last bit about how social engineering is going to affect communal politics. And then I'll take in all your questions. When we're talking about philanthropic organizations or philanthropic institutions being at the helm of affairs, we're talking about certain ideologies being implemented. Now, the document very, very clearly states that we gave minorities, and it's a very false equivalence that is made that, if you have pathshalas, you have gurukuls, you have madrasas, you have convents, they will all be at equal footing. No. The document very, very clearly states that we gave the minorities a free hand to run their institutions, and they were corrupt. They misutilized their funds, they misutilized their powers, and they have been training everyone wrong. So this is a very direct targeted attack on the kind of competition which will come from parallel philanthropic institutions. If it's not following a certain line, if it's not following a certain discipline, it's a war, so it's against you. And the state has every right to squash it and kill it. On the 15th of this month, and by the 2nd of next month, a committee is to be constituted which is studying on how to redesign all madrasas in the country. And the reason this is happening is because the ideology that is to be followed now is one country, one language, one religion, one understanding. That entire concept of oneness, that homogeneity which is being created, is what social engineering is all about. And this is how it's going to get implemented through educational institutions, through the entire process of education. I'll close here. I'll take in any question answers if you have.
যদি কারোর প্রশ্ন থাকে প্লিজ চ্যাট বক্স করুন।
People and no questions. I'm that good. Thanks, Amit.
Since there is no question, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Yes. So you're talking about this long history, the process of this projection. There are certain. They have certain aims. You talked about this. This Brahmanism on the ideology of RSS, etc. So it's also reflected in NEP also. So this tradition, you look at it has become. They are trying to implement in this process. So what is our? You look as a general and academicians. What should we do?
It's a slightly difficult question to answer because it's not just reflected. This document is saying this is what will be achieved. This indoctrination, this grooming generations into a political, into a social ideology is what is going to happen. The first thing that they're doing is closing down on all forms of critical understanding of situations. And how do you oppose it? It's going to be very, very difficult over a period of time. The challenges are there. But the one thing that can be done is document at different levels. Indians have a very long history of documenting. And if you look at all our folklores, if you look at a lot of what you see in the kind of histories, that subaltern histories that have come to us, they're very, very conflicting with the mainstream narratives that come down. Critical thinking and documenting subaltern histories, subaltern contemporary history, subaltern politics is what is going to actually save us. It's not going to be easy, but that is the last resort. How needs to be, very meticulously worked out, because if you do it the traditional way of writing, of putting it up on the internet, or whatever you try to do, it's a matter of time, because keep in mind the parallel laws are there to suppress this. So that's going to be very, very challenging. But yes, that is the only way you can do it. Not let people erase your history. Not let, I think Abid is on that mission to not let Durga's legacy be, or Durga's history be taken over by the Vaishnavites. But that research needs to come in. And it can't come in officially now. Earlier it could come in officially. Now it can't come in officially. So it will have to be at levels which are very subaltern and very unofficial. I hope that answers.
Thank you, Anand. Abid, next question.
Yeah, next question is from Nasima. Her comment is, thank you for your excellent talk. From your talk, we are once again certain that upcoming days are going to be tough, just like NRC and CAA. NEP is one big monster that we need to resist. But the question is how to mobilize maximum number of people in the country against NEP.
The easiest way of doing it would be to tell them the kind of economic liabilities that they will suffer in trying to access education. Because once either the private philanthropic model or the public philanthropic model or the public-private model comes into existence, education is going to be out of the reach of middle class and lower middle class. And if they have to resort to, taking education at informal schools of gurukuls and pathshalas, mobilizing people against that, against the quality of education and against the duration of education is going to be slightly easier. But as with the CAA and RC, the ideological battle is going to be it's going to be an extremely painful, it's going to be extremely long run, and it's going to be extremely difficult. But yes, even in the CAA and RC, people were made aware through media, through social media, through different platforms about the various provisions or the various privileges people are going to lose. Focus on that, you may be able to achieve something. Focus on how education in a classical language vis-a-vis education in English is going to put you at a disadvantage when it comes to maybe migrating or maybe getting yourself a better job. Or maybe just fitting into what the new education policy calls the fourth industrial revolution of artificial intelligence. That's important. Focus on that and you will be able to consolidate, educate. You just need to research and educate. What next, Abid?
Okay, next question is from Muhammad Ikramul Haq. It seems by this way they want to destroy the diversity of our country. Shall they be able to destroy that? And will the people of India accept it? After all, it's not all about Muslims and madrasa education. There are many things which are not equal to RSS ideology.
Yes, the aim is to make India into one homogeneous country. As I said, the aim right now is one language, one religion, one set of people, one Aryan race. That entire thing of being homogeneous is very strong. Will they be able to succeed in this? It's too vast a population for them to control. This is not Germany, this is not France. This is not any other part of the world where the countries are really small. They fit into one little state of ours. We are talking about an entire 1.35 billion. So when we're talking in terms of, such a vast population, it is going to get difficult. And if you resist intelligently, they've shown their intelligence. They're formulating one religion. You formulate a counter religion. Let's see how far it goes, because it's not going to be easy. The resistance forces will be there. Don't forget that only 3.37% of the people who voted elected this government to power. So it's not that the ideology will be accepted, as it is being doled out. A lot of it will be accepted. But when do you start drawing the line and when do you start pushing back is something only time will be able to tell. Hope that answers you.
Okay, next question is from Jahira. Ma'am, as you have mentioned, certain presumed gender roles are being reiterated in the NEP, which pose a bigger threat for the social perception of women in general. Is there any possibility to resist this kind of projection?
It will have to be resisted. Actually, gender sensitization projects will have to be taken up by people who are grassroots workers. Because helping them understand that women are equal and they cannot be boxed in like this is something which is very important. A lot of advancement has been made by women. Reversing the clock will be successful as long as they can enforce it through, a coercive agency like the police, armed forces. But even those agencies can be pushed back. If you notice, I'll give you a very small example. In the Hathras case, the narrative that is being woven is that it's honor killing by the brother and the mother. And it is the Muslims who are trying to weave a false narrative and trying to incite violence. So the Muslims need to be arrested. The brother and the mother are under surveillance. The NIA comes and does their narco test. And the 4 boys who are arrested have an entire panchayat. But the fact remains that since women's organizations and since political pressure over a period of time was able to put so much pressure on the police that they were forced to register an FIR, include caste, and include rape. So now whatever narratives get woven, they will get boxed in. And this fight is going to be an extremely long and arduous fight. For women, the fight is going to be the worst. It's going to be even worse than the caste fight because caste, yes, caste can, be negotiated, but within caste, the kind of misogyny and the kind of patriarchy that we deal with, this is actually, encashing on that. That if we box women, it's going to be easy. And that needs to be fought back and fought back as hard as possible.
Okay, Frida has a question.
Yeah.
How about commencing a social media awareness campaign in collaboration with many NGOs and other organizations or political parties in a well-planned manner? Are you willing to initiate or head this?
I can't really initiate or head any of these. I can definitely be part of it. The problem that will come is everybody's understanding and everybody's fear of being with the right. And I'm not saying right in the sense of right wing. I'm saying being correct. Everybody is not going to be on the same page. Everybody has a very different understanding of how to react. So that becomes a problem in itself. On the one hand, you declare yourself secular. And on the other hand, you are very much part and parcel of all the pujas that are taking place. On the one hand, you're declaring yourself to be an atheist or a non-committal person. And on the other hand, you're respecting all the kind of stereotypes that are going around. And it cuts across religions. So it's going to be a little difficult to get everybody on the platform. But yes, dissecting and understanding the new education policy and understanding the manner in which it is engineering, social engineering, is something which can be done. But everybody's language is going to be different. So if you see the resistance now, it's coming from political parties, but only on language. They're extremely quiet about the fact that the legal education syllabus is to be changed, the medical education system is to be changed, the entire understanding of formal, non-formal education is going to be changed. They're extremely quiet on that. They're only talking in terms of language. And they have the resources. So getting everybody on page is going to be, by the time you get everybody on page, it's going to be 20 years. And in 20 years, you will have a new generation. So as the first question which was asked was, how do we resist this? So either everybody with the intention of resisting this comes up with ideas of how to document subaltern literature, subaltern, histories, document atrocities which are happening right now, document how narratives are being constructed, nothing concrete is going to happen. Yes, I can definitely be part of it, but it's going to be difficult getting everybody on the same page.
Okay, Nasima has another comment.
Yeah.
Ma'am, thanks for replying to my earlier query, but when you talk about subaltern activism of documenting histories, another question comes up, which is how to impart that being outside the mainstream education apparatus. Since the canonized pedagogy would be monopolized by the power brokers, the task would be difficult. Don't you think so? Therefore, I think we must not let this regime implement NEP, because once that's done, administration and corrupt teachers would take over, whereas a few rational progressive teachers would feel cornered, powerless, at the mercy of the administration.
You're absolutely right, Nasima. Absolutely right. The problem is that it is already getting implemented. If you think it is going to be a project which will be implemented in the future, you're very sadly mistaken. It is already in progress. From 2017, from 2016, the draft new education policy which came in, to this, the changes are already being implemented. And somewhere along the line, since our government was very sure they're going to be winning the second round of elections, so this now is coming a very, very calculated, documented form. If you look at the NEP of 2016, it was small. It had the same idea, but not so very well defined. But the idea of suppression, exclusion, marginalization, and patriarchy is being implemented. So the philanthropic organizations are running the Anganwadis, the Balwadis, the midday meal schemes, the primary education teachers training programs. They are already doing it. The acre schools where schools can't reach. And as I told you right in the very beginning, the parallel school structure is already there. This is just legitimizing it. So don't be under the impression that this is going to come in the future. It's already there. It is just going to get mainstream. You need to resist it. You will need to get creative, and you will need to get as creative as they are, if not more. It's not something which is going to be very easy to defeat.
We don't have any questions as such. I would just like to comment on this. Is what you said that the lateral ecosystem already exists in India, as it has been created in the last 20 years by RSS with the various products and various creation of initiatives like Vanvasi, Kalyan Ashram, and all these things. So I think we also need to intervene at a private level, at the same time try to engage with government and pressurize government and create alternative government ecosystem who are going to take this forward. So the work should start now.
Yeah, you can start now. Abid, the parallel system has been with us all the way from the 1950s. It's not something which has come up now. They have over 1.5 lakh schools. The shakhas are already running it. So if you think this has only come up in the last 20 years, no, it's come up in the last 70 years. The ideas were always there. The Gurukuls and Pathshalas were always there. The Vidya Bhartis came up in the 1950s, and the Vidya Bhartis are the ones which, break up into gender schools of Durga Vahini schools and the schools where you have the proper Shakha education. So that exists. all that you need to do is either you get parallel, because now it's getting mainstream. So now you have the option of becoming parallel. You have the option of, being part of a system where self-help groups can become the parallel schools. They can document histories, they can document folk stories, they can document narratives. They can be parallel now. And yes, at the same time, if you're successful in destroying the government and destroying the system, that would be the icing on the top. But let's see how far that goes. As of now, there is an opposition because it's being feared to bring in globalization and all those fancy terms. Nobody is actually connecting it with something more base, something like religion and satisfaction of a small little, human insecurity about religion, about identity. We're still talking, all the opposition to it is still talking in terms of economics, it's talking in terms of, how it's going to get unaffordable, it's going to go out of reach, how it's going to make it difficult if you change languages, it's going to get very difficult to integrate with the rest of the world, and you'll be just a serving economy to a larger global economic project. But what it's failing to see, or it is failing to understand, is the very base instinct of every human being to feel insecure about their identity, which is what this is actually playing with. That is something we need to focus on.
I think there are no more questions. So I would like Abdul Mateen to say something if he is online.
No, I was listening, and thank you so much, ma'am, for your enlightening point from the lens of gender and caste. And it was really a privilege for us to have you in our base discussions. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Abdul.
So now I'd like Kobita ma'am to give the official vote of thanks.
Please.
Thank you, Abid. On behalf of Bengali Academia for Social Empowerment, BASE, my heartfelt thanks to today's esteemed speaker, Dr. Rushda Siddiqi. Thank you for accepting our invitation and for your excellent deliberation on the topic social engineering through education, understanding NEP through the lens of gender and caste. You explained these complex issues in such a simple way. You covered the NEP from different perspectives and addressed the serious loopholes, rather fatal issues. How NEP turns blind eye to the deep-rooted inequalities and how exclusion has been done, how homogeneity has created. And I can see the chat box, people appreciated your talk. Thank you, Dr. Rushda, for this wonderful deliberation, and thanks for devoting your precious time for this. Now, I would like to thank our team members who took active part in today's lecture. My sincere thanks to the technical team of the lecture series for all their support. I want to mention that BASE is blessed with several effective committees, and collaborative efforts of all made this event successful. A load of thanks to our participants. Your active participation is our encouragement. See you soon in our coming sessions. The poster and the registration link for the upcoming session will be shared. Please register as well. Thank you, Dr. Rushda, once again. We would love to get your company in future. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you, Abid.
It is officially over, so I'd like all participants to leave this Google Meet session.
Okay.